They haven't been a feature of any of the response to coronavirus, so that's good.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's brilliant that the vaccine programme is beginning. Unfortunately, there are real question marks over who is benefiting from some of the COVID-19 contracts, though. So how will the Secretary of State ensure that cronyism and profiteering doesn't become features of this stage of the COVID-19 response?
Well, thankfully, they are, as the NAO set out, they haven't been a feature of any of the response to coronavirus, so that's good.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a great day for medicine, science and the population, but in response to my honourable friend, the member for Blaenau Gwent, the Secretary of State was somewhat dismissive of an important National Audit Office report which raised serious concerns about the letting of contracts in government. Late contracts being published, missing paperwork, a high priority lane established which 1 in 10 contracts were awarded through via of those applying were awarded via that route. And this overall lack of transparency and, as the NEO says, the lack of documentation of key decisions and including, and I quote, why particular suppliers were chosen, is important. It's taxpayers' money that's being spent. So perhaps in relation to the vaccine rollout, could the Secretary of State tell us, are private companies involved and will he commit to being open and transparent about publishing the contracts and all the paperwork that goes with it?
Mr. Speaker, of course, I will defend to the end the work that we did to get the PPE rollout to which she refers. It is, of course, we had priority contracts because we wanted, when somebody had a good lead, to be able to see if we could make an arrangement as fast as possible. But that was all done through the proper processes as the NAO report sets out. And she asks, Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for the Honourable Lady, but really, she asks whether private companies will be involved in the vaccine rollout. Well, try Pfizer or BioNTech, the people who came up with and are manufacturing this vaccine. Without them, we wouldn't have a vaccine at all, and a bit of a thank you would do well from the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee.
For the vast majority of the country, this pandemic has been an utter misery. It has been 8 long months of loneliness, of hardship and of bereavement. But for a wealthy few, it has been something quite different.
Thank you.
For them, it has been an opportunity to cash in on connections, and boy, have they cashed in.
Thank you.
Take, for example, Conservative donor David Mellor, someone who has donated more than £60,000 to the party in the past decade, including thousands to the leadership bid of the Conservative MP for Surrey Heath, who now, of course, is the Minister for the Cabinet Office, the department that happens to be in charge of PPE procurement. Well, Mr. Mellor's company ordinarily specialises in home and beauty products, but now has been awarded more than £163 million in PPE contracts. That's nearly 10 times increase in its entire 2019 turnover.
Thank you.
Deals like this are far from isolated. A small, loss-making firm run by a Conservative councillor handed a £156 million contract to import PPE.
Thank you.
A company run by the former business associate of Conservative peer Baroness Mohn handed £122 million in a PPE contract just 7 weeks after it was set up.
Thank you.
A deal to hand a private equity company a £252 million contract for face masks that were never used, brokered by a senior advisor to the International Trade Secretary, who also happens to sit on the board of the private equity company.
Thank you.
The National Audit Office report found that companies with political contacts were 10 times more likely to be handed contracts than those without political contacts.
Thank you.
Chair, the newspapers describe these dealings as chumocracy. They've also called it cronyism. Well, I think if it was happening in another country, they would call it by a different name. I'll leave it to the imagination of members here and our constituents as to what that name would be. Thank you.
They haven't been a feature of any of the response to coronavirus, so that's good. Thank you would do well from the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee.